Coupe-like SUVs are all the rage at the moment. With their lower rooflines and sportier looks, they are just that little bit cooler than normal luxury off-roaders.
But which should you choose between the new Audi Q8 or the recently revised Range Rover Sport? Yeah, this car's lighter than that car. It also has the coolest lights, look. Ah, ain't that pretty?
Speaking of looking pretty, to help you decide which of these two is best, I'm going to compare their designs.
Looks a little bit like Bane, the baddie from Batman.
Check out their technology.
Looks like Range Rover's moved into the 21st century.
Test how practical they are.
It just won't work.
And finally, see what they're like to drive.
You just seem to sit higher than in other SUVs.
But first, let's talk money and compare these cars' prices.
The Q8 starts from £65,000, but you can save an average of just over £3,000 off one through CarWow. And moving on to the Range Rover, well, when you first check out the price, you go, oh look, it starts from £64,000, and also you can save £3,000 on average through CarWow. But that's a little bit misleading, the starting price, because the Range Rover kicks off with a 4-cylinder engine, whereas you get a 6-cylinder with the Audi. And when you match them like for spec and engines, the Audi is better value.
Also, the Audi is arguably more head-turning thanks to its more sporty and modern design.
I just love the side profile of this car. It looks super cool. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Matt, it's supposed to be a big SUV, it looks kind of small, but that's actually a trick of the camera. If I go stand next to it, you'll see it is in fact massive. Now you might recognise the back end because it's been inspired by the Quattro from the 1980s. As for the front, well yeah, it looks a little bit like Bane, the baddie from Batman. It's all got a similar mask.
But while the Q8 is quite different to other Audis, the Sport is far more familiar.
There's no mistaking a Range Rover. They just have a certain unique look. This Sport version obviously is a bit sleeker than the bigger one, but it's still a massive thing with loads of road presence. Look, I can completely disappear behind it because it's the size of a building.
So does this mean the Range Rover feels positively palatial inside? Well, yes and no.
It's very spacious here in the back of the Sport, and there's very little to complain about, but I have found a few things. For instance, you don't seem to sit on this back seat. You're a bit slumped down. If you look, your knees are quite high, so it's like you're squatting down on it. And then there's the fact that the seats in front, they're positioned quite low, so you can't slide your feet under unless the person in the front jacks their seat all the way up, which they're probably not going to want to. Other than that though, yeah, it's lovely to travel in.
But while the Range Rover is very good, if you need to carry rear passengers, the Audi is even better.
Well, I have absolutely nothing to complain about back here. It's humongous. It's got so much room. It's like a limousine. I can totally stretch out, just recline my seat a bit, and you can pay to upgrade the seats so they slide forward for more boot space if you want to, but no, let's not bother with that. Let's just chill. Oh, man, this is comfy.
Things aren't quite so comfy though with 3 in the back, as the middle passenger pushes the outer 2 towards the sides of the car where the roof slopes inwards slightly, and this reduces headroom. There isn't this problem in the more boxy shaped Range Rover. The Sport's spacious rear also makes it easy to manoeuvre a child's seat in place, but it's a bit of a faff to locate the Isofix anchor points as they're hidden behind the seat cushion. There's no such problem with the Q8 though, thanks to its much more accessible anchor points. But what about when it comes to transporting stuff instead of humans?
The Q8's boot may be very large, but I do have 3 complaints about it. The first is the fact that you've got a bit of a boot lip there, so you can't just slide heavy items straight in and out. The second is the fact that you can't fold down the back seats from here. You have to walk around and open the back doors, then use a lever on the seat base. And the third problem is this, look, well, the sloping tailgate means that you can't load taller items here, because if you do and you try and shut the boot, it just won't work. See?
Still, if you pack it carefully, you can fit lots in the Q8, as it has a capacity of 605 litres. And if you need to carry longer or larger items, the seats split 3 ways, and then you have absolutely loads of load space. 1,755 litres to be precise. Meanwhile, the Range Rover's total load capacity is 1,686 litres, but with the seats up, you only have room for 522 litres.
On paper, this car's boot capacity is 20% less than the Audi's, but on the flip side, it does have a spare wheel under there. Instead of that, you can actually have a 7-seat option, so the third row of seats will fold into that space. Oh, and I should also point out, look, there is no load lip to lift stuff off, so you can just sit quite comfortably on the back here.
The Range Rover's in-car storage is really good too, better in fact than the Audis. But this is not quite enough to give it the edge, as overall the Q8 is marginally the more practical vehicle, but not by enough to actually matter. What's more important is how it feels to sit in.
The Q8 gets Audi's latest interior design, and it's lovely. Very simple, very sleek, extremely well made. This one is upgraded with leather on the dash and some other places as well. It's very nice. It lifts it even higher. Trouble is, it sends the price higher as well, because that extra is around £3,000, which is insane. The design includes this new touchscreen system. You've got 2 screens here, and yeah, looks good, doesn't it? It's not so good to use though when you're driving.
Audi's old swivel wheel control system that you get in the Q7 is actually better to use. That said, this new system has well laid out menus and is super responsive. And anyway, you can control most functions through the digital driver's display using the steering wheel buttons. You can even change the view for even larger, more detailed Google mapping. It really does look wonderful, and it makes the Q8 seem a suitably high-tech car. Very, very German in fact. But how does the British SUV measure up?
The inside of this Range Rover Sport is lovely. You sit really high, not quite as high as in the bigger Range Rover, but definitely high enough, and the quality is very good. Everything you touch feels expensive. There's leather everywhere in this particular car. It's got a slightly smaller steering wheel than the bigger Range Rover to make it feel more sporty, and it feels great as well, that does. The thing that dominates the cabin though are the new touchscreens, which are from the Velar. So you've got one up there for main media stuff, one down there for your climate control, and a digital driver's display as well. Looks like Range Rover's moved into the 21st century, finally.
The system is alright, but the menus just aren't quite as logical as the Q8's. Also, the screens don't seem as sharp either, especially the digital driver's display, which just isn't as slick to use as that in the Audi. As a result, the Q8 just edges the Sport for tech and luxury. But what about when it comes to driving? Well, if you're interested in going off-road, the Sport is the best choice here, and you can still appreciate its capabilities while driving on-road, which is what most owners will be doing for 99.999 recurring % of the time.
There's just something about driving a Range Rover. They feel special. Part of it is that you just seem to sit higher than in other SUVs, and it just makes you feel very, very regal. I like them. But there's a definite weight to them. They don't feel the most agile. They certainly don't feel the most sporty, even though this thing is supposed to be called the Sport. Chuck this down a twisty road and it'll go around most corners okay, but if you press too hard, it starts to, well, it runs out of ideas. It's not the sharpest thing to drive. Also, it's not quite as comfy as you might imagine. So generally, it's absolutely fine. The air suspension is good at dealing with bumps. It's just when you're going slow around town and you encounter like small imperfections in the road, it just fidgets a bit. It's not fully composed. And then when you're blatting down the motorway, while it's generally very, very relaxing, you do get a little bit of wind noise. That's the only off-putting thing. Engine-wise, this is the TD V8 diesel. It's got sufficient punch, and it actually sounds all right for a diesel when you put your foot down, but economy, it's not great. I'm doing 26 miles per gallon. Right, can't fault the gearbox. Gearbox is very good in this. You know, it's not the fastest to respond, but it's quick enough and it's very, very smooth. This is a very nice car to drive. I don't think it's the best SUV to drive, but it definitely has that unique Range Rover feel. That's a good thing. Now, jumping out of the Range Rover into this, it is quite different. You sit lower, you sit more in it. It's more car-like basically, and I think it's comfier. So the air suspension is doing a better job in this car ironing out the bumps than the one in the Range Rover, which was a little bit too busy, shall we say. It also handles better. You can fling this thing down a twisty road faster than you can that Range Rover. Part of the reason is that it's lighter, but I also think that it's just a better balanced car. The steering is quite light though, so it never feels sporty, but it is more precise than that in the Range Rover. Engine-wise, it's a little bit noisier, I think. It doesn't sound quite so good, but it's delivering similar performance, even though it's only a V6, 3 litre. It's got 286 horsepower, but 0 to 60 is actually 6.3 seconds. And economy, well, I'm getting 34 miles per gallon, which is, well, that's all right. What's better than all right, though, is just how quiet this car is. No noise at all entering. It feels really serene in here. Like the seats, they're nice and comfortable. One thing that isn't great, though, is the gearbox. So if I put my foot down, there. It's finally responded. It's just not great at responding. Even when you got it in sports mode, it's a little bit sluggish. Other than that though, yeah, this is a very easy, relaxing car to drive, and you can get it with rear wheel steering, which means that if you have to do like tight maneuvers such as going up those multi-story car parks in town, it's dead easy. It's actually as easy to maneuver around town with this rear wheel steering as an Audi A3. It's way bigger. That is a feature worth considering. Yeah, I love this car to drive. It's very comfortable, easy and relaxing.
So then, where does all that leave us?
Well, the Range Rover Sport, it is a lovely thing, and you know, if you want to go off-roading, it is the best car here. But let's face it, most people don't actually take their fashion off-roaders off-road. They want to cruise around town and use them on the motorway for commuting. And really, the Audi Q8 is a better all-round road car, and that's why it wins this test.
If you enjoyed this video, please like it, comment on it and share it. Also click on our logo to subscribe to this channel, and if you click on the bottom right hand corner you can actually watch more of our content. Meanwhile, click over to the right to go to our deals page to see how much money you can save on a new car at CarWow.